Holy backlash. Okay, so I saw Alien Covenant over the weekend. It's been catching just as much flack as Prometheus did, and I can understand why people didn't like it, and I can also understand why people do like it. I personally thought it was a good movie, and it's, again, one of those things where I went in expecting something, and this is not what I expected, and what was handed to me was something different. So that's why I'm hearing a lot of this movie sucks, is because it's not the movie or the story that they wanted to be told. First thing you gotta realize when you go into a Ridley Scott film nowadays, you have to watch all the content. So every trailer, every little 5-minute snippet that they send out, you gotta watch it. You don't really get a lot of character development in this film because you've already had a little bit of that to begin with. That's why you have subtleties like no one likes the captain after James Franco dies, because he's just that guy that's by the books, and he's that guy with a stick up his ass is really what people think of him. You see that a lot in the 5-minute short with The Last Supper. You also understand why Tennessee has his wife across the table. They're on good terms, they're having a good time, they're very social people, and also when Tennessee talks and then the next shot is her hand showing a wedding ring. That's you identifying those two are together. The second in command, who becomes the captain in Alien Covenant, he and his wife are talking. And he says, Tennessee's such a jackass, I don't like him, this and that. And it's basically, it's establishing that we all go to work, we all have those bad days, and we all have those people we don't like working with. Those two don't like working with each other. You also see where Walter and Daniels kind of have a connection, but not really. It's enough to hint that Walter is interested in Daniels, but Walter is also an android. So if you're one of those people that are like, I really don't want to watch the extra stuff, I just don't understand why I need to watch all that, it's stuff from the story that they can't fit in the movie because they only are allowed so much of a time block. If somebody said this is going to be a 3-hour movie, no one would go watch it. I know there are a lot of people that like watching 3-hour movies. I personally don't. 2.5 hours is well beyond enough for me. You should be able to nail a story in 2 hours. I can give you the extra half hour. 3 hours is just kind of overkill for me, even if I really, 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 really love the movie. Getting back to the first opening scene where David and Peter are talking. Basically, you have David over here he is everything a human should be, he's a living creature for the most part that's been let down his entire existence. His first 5 minutes, which is the first 5 minutes in the Alien Covenant, is him being shackled into slavery. Peter Weyland creates him. You see Peter Weyland talking to him. He says, this is how things are, this is the way things go, you're what, show me what you can do, what is your name, cool, now serve me my tea. Pour me a cup of tea. And David 8 says, well, how about, and he says, I don't care, serve me my tea. You were created to serve me my tea. I created life, and I can enslave it. So there is a bit of a god complex going on with Peter Weyland. It's shitty, but that's his character. He's very, very, very full of himself and very, very egotistical. You see Peter, he's very much younger as they're talking and all that kind of stuff. And this really nails down, this sets the tone for the entire movie. This is a movie about how the xenomorph was created, yes, but it was also a movie about what happened to David and Shaw, and this also is a movie about David. This primarily is what happens when you create something. Often it rebels and destroys you. The first time David is ever talking about why he was created or anything to anybody else was Holloway on Prometheus, and David said, why did you create me? And Holloway says, because we could. How disappointing is that? Your entire existence, not only did you get created to serve and be whatever the hell you are to this person, but your entire existence is summed up in, I was bored. I made you because I was bored, or I made you because I could. And then at the end of his existence, almost the end of his existence, a near-death call or a close call or whatever you want to call it, Engineer rips David's head off and beats Peter Weyland to death with it. They're laying next to each other, and Peter Weyland says, "You are such a disappointment," or somewhere along those lines. I can't remember the exact term, but verbatim it is, "You are such a disappointment," or "You were disappointing." And David says, "I know." Because David can't live up to those expectations. David had a father that basically never loved him. This is what this entire thing is about. And he learned that when you create something, you can enslave it, or when you create something, you are better than something else. Since David 8 is completely unshackled, artificially intelligence-wise, he actually has a full run of emotions, and he can lie, and all those other kind of things. He wants to be able to create something because I can climb the ladder above you. The next part in the movie, some stuff happens, and a lot of people say, well, why doesn't anybody wear a goddamn helmet? How the movie leads up to that is there is a signal that is tracked on accident. Somebody gets a little bit of a signal, they kind of clean up the signal as best they can, and they go find the origin point of it. And it's kind of just a by chance thing. It was a complete accident that it happened, but they went and followed it anyway. And turns out they have a Goldilocks planet, which is not too hot, not too cold, perfect atmosphere, everything they need, and they're a colonization mission. They were supposed to go to somewhere safe. They weren't supposed to go somewhere that had any danger whatsoever, but they did bring guns. Thank God you brought guns, because you'd have some way to defend yourself. They went there, they sent probes, nothing came back positive or negative. It was perfect. And maybe there was a little wildlife or anything like that. So hence guns, biological warfare, hazmat suits or anything like that, they didn't really bring. So I can understand that. They land on a different planet. These are also not highly trained people. These are people that went to another world because they could. And getting back to the not the download content, but the earlier content that was released, Tennessee specifically states, I have a record. I stole some stuff. I am a criminal. Thank God that background check didn't show anything. So I already have a ship. Thank you much. I'm on my way out of here. It's a fresh start for me and my wife. I'm leaving. I'm out. Peace, kind of thing. So you kind of get that these are not top-notch scientists. They're not really scientists at all. One's a doctor, one's a lab assistant, or one is an actual scientist who gets samples and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't sound like they're the furthest, or they lead their fields. They just sound like, yeah, they kind of work in that industry and that's it. They seem like 9-to-5 people, but since they're on a colonization mission, they get to start over again. So that might be what everybody has in common, which I'm not entirely sure because they don't really delve into everybody's reason. They just go into Daniels, and they go a little bit into Tennessee's and his wife, and James Franco, a tiny bit. Not much, though. So in some of the earlier content, you see David wipes out the engineer race. It's not the engineer race, or at least personally, I really don't think it is, because there's not a lot showing that it is. In the first movie, you see a giant ship land on Earth. They create life, all that kind of stuff, by melting one of their own down. They break up the DNA and shove it out into the world. So it starts creating all sorts of life on planet Earth. Later on, you see that the engineers have not only one ship, but 5. There's 5 of those domes, or 4 of those domes. I'm not entirely sure. It's been a couple of years since I've seen the movie. But let's say there's 5 of those domes. They crash one ship. They got 4 left. They take one, 3 left. So on LV-223, right now, there's 3 ships sitting there. David shows up. He thinks it's the engineer homeworld, I'm assuming, and just decides to wipe everything out. Which brings me to the inconsistencies of the black goo. A lot of people had problems with Prometheus because this black goo is basically a magic cure-all, does-all kind of thing. And I agree, but I don't agree with it. When dispersed correctly, it creates a mist and releases a whole bunch of, basically what it looks like is almost mosquitoes that rip things apart. The initial blast of it completely destroys all organic life. The leftover effects, which is what I'm guessing the engineers made this for is it's like an atomic bomb. First you have the blast, then you have the radiation. No one wants to deal with the area. Pretty much it's a dead zone. That's it. This lasts a lot longer because you have the initial blast, kills everybody, and then you have the fallout from it creates little spores, or little pods, which create spores, and these things like to fly around and genetically mutate things. So it turns whatever into a neomorph, which is, I don't know why people are calling it that, but I guess neo meaning new, morph meaning whatever the hell it is, or a creature. So it creates a neomorph, which basically, for a human being, it comes out your spine. It removes your spine, it takes all of the biological material in you and creates something else. It also has the same properties as a xenomorph, which has exponential growth rate, all that kind of stuff, yada yada yada. It's new. What I think happened is that Shaw and David were hopping around from planet to planet, because you see Shaw with a map out, she's trying to figure out where they're going, and David says, I think I know where the homeworld is in the first movie. And the only thing they have to work with is some old flight logs, which if I go to here multiple times, that means that place must be important. But maybe it's not the homeworld. Maybe they don't go to the homeworld. Maybe they don't have one anymore there, or this is just a military thing where that ship literally doesn't go home ever. So they go there a couple times, and you only see one ship, and it looks like a docking platform for the ship that they stole. And that's where David starts to rain all the black goo canisters. Everybody there doesn't look like the original engineers. They're not very, very pale. They have a little color to them. They actually have whites of their eyes. The engineers had silver eyes. No one has any of the spacesuits or the hazmat environmental suits at all. They also are different shapes and sizes. They also have a king. Also, there is no technology lying around. There's none. There's no guns. There's no electricity or anything. David 8 has been living there for what they say is 7 years, I think. And you figure he would be able to piece together some stuff. And in Prometheus, they had everything was a rock formation for the most part, and they had an electronic gel on it. And David manipulates the gel, some squishy stuff, and he manages to make a ship move. There's got to be an engine bay. There's got to be other things to it, and they don't show you that, which is fine to me, or fine with me. But the Monarchy Society, whatever David bombed, there's only one city in the entire planet, for one, making me think that it's not an actual planet of huge amounts of growth. This planet might have been something that's actually not really that inhabitable by them. And they might have done this multiple times. What you saw on Earth, they might have done multiple times elsewhere. Why would you only have one experiment when you can have 80 million going on, or just 70 going on? So I'm thinking David just wiped out whatever the hell was there and accidentally stranded himself and marooned himself on the wrong damn planet. It never says what happened to Shaw. Shaw was eventually used as biological material for David's creation. David, I think, goes nuts. Not only has he suffered multiple concussions, which, yes, he's a robot, but if I take a hard drive and smack it against the ground a lot, do you think it's going to, save all that information, especially when David had his head ripped off and, somebody was beaten to death with his head, and then David was put back together. Something could have gotten crossed. Something could have went wrong. David could have just been a fucking asshole his entire life. Everybody's also wearing robes. Like I said, there's no spacesuits or anything. There's no super highly technological advanced suits or clothing or anything like that. It's just all robes. It's all commoner stuff. And there's a guy with a crown in the background. That doesn't make me think anything of this is a highly advanced civilization. They still have a king. They don't have a democracy. They don't have a leadership or a hierarchy. They just have some guy with a crown in the background, which you gotta look really hard, but he is actually there. I didn't even see it until somebody pointed it out. The artwork is also different. The face in Prometheus in the offering room is much different from the faces that you see throughout the palace. Also, you see Shaw's body is intact. He also has a drawing of her where her jaw is ripped off, and it basically looks like he took the top of her head from jawline up and ripped it off, and she is dead on the ground with eyes closed. When you actually see her body, her face is intact. She looks normal. I think what happened was he tried to bomb the city. Something happened, malfunction, something, and he wound up crashing the ship into a mountainside, and he just went back to the city after Shaw had died because she was asleep in a pod. Pod probably malfunctioned. She didn't survive. That's just my take on it. After the whole thing, Walter and David get in an altercation. I did see this being very predictable. As soon as you have two people that look identical and they're at a standoff and then you don't see them again, you only see one, it's not gonna be the good guy. The way they gave it away at the end, very, very good. It nods a lot back to a lot of old horror films that you lost. And this is the reason I like this movie, is it is like Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back was probably the best Star Wars movie. Why? Because you lost. Flat out. It's the one or few times in your life where you literally, you're on the ground and all the bad guys are winning. Everybody bad is winning. And this is the same thing. When David, at the end of it, puts everybody into cryo sleep, it's amazing how it's just everything fits seamlessly. Here you go, here's this, will you help me do that? I don't know what you're talking about. Crap, you're David. And it's, don't worry, I win. Cool. By the way, computer, play my favorite song, I'm amazing. And he wins, he gets it. He keeps a little bit of biological material from a couple facehuggers that he coughs up and all that kind of stuff, and I'm assuming that you've already seen the film by now. But, like I said, this is just my opinion. If you guys don't like it, feel free to not like it. It's no skin off my nose or anybody else's. I personally just thought it was one of those, you need to actually open your mind to the possibility of it. Enjoy.